Hello and welcome. This is kind of an impromptu video. Just signed up for a new service called StreamYard, and it should be allowing me to stream to multiple locations at the same time. So we should be on YouTube live right now, and also live on Facebook in the Facebook group called the Rabbit Design Feed. So I should be able to see comments from both sides. Unfortunately, I think the comments will be anonymous from the Facebook side until I figure that out. So anyways, this is kind of a fun idea that I thought I'd run through, which kind of runs through a daily practice for me. I have difficulty getting started every day. And part of my process for getting started is going in and solving a few community problems. And what a better way to get you guys involved with me in these feeds than to show you what my process is from start to finish. So this would be the start of my day, and we're going to get a little bit further along than that, in that this is kind of fun. It's kind of a silly concept, which is that I'm going to run through the first page of Q&A on the ChiefTalk forums, general Q&A, and try to solve these problems. Why not? Let's figure it out. And so let me just dive right in and show you the process. I'll try to kind of expand this window so we can really see what these questions are, and I'll pin any comments that I see if you guys manage to chime in and come in here live. I know this isn't a scheduled live event, so you might be seeing this after it's already been posted. So our first one I'll take a look at once we get past forum guidelines in ChiefTalk's general Q&A forum is we've got X13, an internal rendering error and crash. I happen to know what this thread's about. It's been ongoing for a while. If you're new to Chief Architect X13, then you're probably not running into a ton of issues. But if you're trying to pull a template file that was built in a legacy version of Chief, legacy meaning X12, X11, X10 on down, then you might run into some crashes where we're getting a Windows timeout error, and it crashes the program. The timeout error actually suspends Chief Architect, and Chief Architect hasn't, I don't think, figured out a way to code this out so that it increases that timeout for its particular program. So program hangs, it crashes by default. The workaround is starting from an X13 template. You may have something in your X12 templates that is causing it to crash. If you start from a blank X13 template, it may in fact work just as it's intended to. So if you do want to use your X12 templates, it may be helpful to try to we don't want to migrate our template from X12. We want to transfer. The difference being that a transfer would be that we are pulling elements, be it default settings, save plan views, etc., wall definitions, etc., your annotation sets, if you still use that, called default sets. You can export that from your template plan from X12 and import that into your new template plan in X13. The only thing that I don't have a great method on is being able to copy any CAD details from your template into a template for X13. So if you're getting internal rendering errors, then I would tell you that you need to start from an X13 file and build your template from there, and it should eliminate most of those errors so long as they're up to date on your graphics card driver. So this is a common problem. We're running into it a lot. I know that there's a registry key edit that you can do to increase your timeout delay inside of Windows. So if you're still having problems after you've done what I suggested this first time around, there is a way to do some registry key edits. I don't recommend it in the long run. You ultimately want to solve this error by just starting from a default template plan and kind of working from there. If you've got additional problems on this, give me a call, give me a text, shoot me an email, anything. Let's see, let's check this next one out, multiple buildings. And keep in mind, this is the first time I'm seeing most of these. I've never read these before, so we're just going to work through it. I just figured it'd be kind of a fun thing to get you guys involved, and then I don't know, maybe this can be an ongoing segment we do, so a week by week segment. So here's our first one, modeling a complex, and you're going to hear me reading this out loud to you. We're modeling a complex that has a set of buildings. Some have multiple floors. Learn that once I define building A, which has 3 floors, then go to building B, that is supposed to have 2. When I select building B and try to add a floor, the new floor is added to building A, which is true. Anytime you add a new floor, it doesn't matter how many buildings you have in that particular plan file, it's going to add a new floor. That's just a global floor set within that plan file. So let's see, what's he asking then in addition to that? Assuming that there's no difference for what I'm trying to do from poking around the forums, goal is to have a master plan. So you can do this in a number of different ways. You could have a one plan that has multiple units on it, which we just had a live feed recently that where I demonstrated how to do that, and maybe we can link that back in the description so we get a little a tie in there. But you can have multiple unit in a singular plan, or you can have a new plan for every unit and then use a reference file to show those plans, or you don't even need to use a reference plan. If we're just talking about construction documents, you can always send your individual plans to layout and then compile it in layout. I like to tell people that a layout should be considered a PDF compiler. You're using it to compile, a finished document utilizing resources. So it doesn't matter that you're just sending things from plan to layout. Ultimately, you're just creating a PDF. You could always just add elements to your PDF after you've gotten out of Chief Architect. That's a novel idea. Sometimes it's nice to add some additional graphical things that Chief doesn't do well from a third-party software in your PDF after your plan set is printed from Chief. That's a new idea to some people. Okay, custom note schedule, duplicate numbering. So this is a common issue. Anytime you see duplicate numbering in a plan, typically what this is indicating to you is that you have multiple schedules that are covering the same objects that are being included in that schedule. So, and that's the case here. It absolutely is the case. Is this person seeing, multiple numbers in his callouts? That means he has a duplicate schedule somewhere else. And sometimes it's hard to troubleshoot to find out where those schedules are. You could use if we're in Chief, let's just open this up real quick. Underneath our edit menu, we have a delete objects tool. And from here, you've got schedules. So you could delete all your schedules, or you could delete the individual schedule in question. So quick, easy way of maybe just deleting all the schedules, bringing in a new one, or you're going to have to figure out how to locate that schedule. I don't think I have a great way of locating it other than what I just discussed. So let's get back into our forum now. Let's go back a level, see what our next one is. Is there a place to get a decent discount on CA? Not that I know of. There's no, Chief does not allow resellers. Not anymore. It used to be. So you can ask Dan Bowman. He knows about it. He doesn't like talking about it. Sorry, Dan, if you're watching, I'm calling you out. Let's see. Next one. Is there let's see. NVIDIA drivers updated. I think this is just a resource location. Same issue. This kind of ties into that internal rendering error. It's nice to keep those NVIDIA drivers updated as we're making advances in the ray trace engine. I feel like NVIDIA is still kind of catching up to all the little glitches. Windows 11, it's on the known incompatibility list. If we look up Chief Architect's known incompatibilities, you're going to find out that Windows 11 is there. So it doesn't has some problems in the functionality. I know people are using it and using it just fine. Chief's working with it, but I personally am staying on Windows 10 for a number of different reasons for a while. So not going to touch that one. How to label materials. Wonder what this is. I'm kind of curious what angle we're pulling here. Hi, I've drawn a deck and would like to indicate the materials used with a line to the item. Example, 2x8 joist at 16 on center. Is this a text box? So not truly a material in the sense of Chief Architect, what they classify as material. What Chief Architect classifies as a material, I might call it something different, texture package, something like that, because it does get confusing considering the industry we're in, where a bill of materials is going to refer to, our construction component based stuff like 2x4 studs. So I've drawn a deck and would like to indicate the materials used with a line to the item. Well, this person may not know that we do have framing labels. So there's one method there. Another thing you might consider is any component, and let's just clarify what a component is real quick. An architectural component can be something like a window or a wall, and we have a component box or a component contextual box. They're kind of interchangeable terms. Chief's a little inconsistent in their quality control on some of these terms. So if we open up this wall and we look at our components panel, so these are panels over here. By the way, I'm going to come out with a video that discusses all the classifications of every element you see on screen within the software. So we're on a panel over here, or panels, I should say, and we've got a components panel. In the components panel, we see some designations here. These are just a few of the designations that are available to you. A lot of times, what we see here in this ID column, which actually it's not labeled as such, but that's actually a row. So we've gotten a label on this first part here, but this is like a component classification. So we see a number of different things here, and these things are all reporting information. Another location that we can find information from is selecting a wall, getting into our CAD menu, getting into our text submenu, getting into our text macro management tool. We have here mine, let's see, I'm not working on default templates anymore, so I'm going to have some additional macros in here that you may not see. But there should be an object properties macro within your default templates. In fact, let's just open up my new, let me do a new plan from template. So template, new plan from template, and I'm going to get into the default, where is it? Residential template and Imperial. So in this template file, and this was migrated, so that's why it said it was from a beta release. And where were we going with this? Let's see, what was our, I got sidetracked. Okay, so in our default template, underneath our CAD in text and text macro management, what we're going to find here is object properties. This particular instance is a problem because we don't have a wall drawn here. So let's draw a wall, select it, back again, CAD, text macro management, object properties. It shows an evaluation error. So the out-of-the-box template has a problem with the object properties. And so maybe it's that contextually we need to change this to owner object. Structural requirement. Example usage, object properties, etc. Okay. Interesting. I might have to put out a little hot fix to fix your object properties so they work the way that mine do. So when I get into my CAD text macro management, in fact, maybe I'll leave this in the comments. Here's my object properties macro. Here's what I'll do. I'm going to go ahead and copy this whole section here. And then I'm going to drop it in the comments. You create a new macro with that text option. And look, it's split across 3 different comments. So if I show this on the screen, you're going to see it's split across multiple different comments. So you're going to have to copy paste that. Maybe I'll link back to it, but that's this macro for object properties. What you're going to see here in the expanded macro value, and we're getting a little off course, but trust me, it ties in, is all of the different available reporting elements of a singular component. So these are all the classifications for that component that we have available to us in our macro properties. So not only do we have framing labels, associated with a framing member or a component of framing, I should say, but we also have the ability to do some mathematical equations utilizing macros to create some really, really custom labels. Not only can we create custom labels, we can drop them in notes. The notes can drop into our library. We can always drag those in, point them to a framing member, and have it parse that info. So some kind of next level edit stuff. If you're interested in that kind of thing, I teach that kind of thing. There's a few resources I could point you to. Otherwise, we check that out. So anyways, the long and the short of it is that yes, for this user, there are some capabilities here. Maybe I'll go in and answer this guy shortly. Next one up, let's see. Chief Stucco Material Eyedropper. Well, I already know what this issue is. Somewhere around X10, Chief changed its stucco material. And what it did was, if we go into a plan file, and I'm just going to open this up from plan view. I don't need to pull a 3D view to get to my materials here. But we're going to see here on the outside, I'm utilizing one of the stucco materials. Look, I didn't even prep this, and we're able to get to the issue. So here's that pebble dash heavy beige. And if I go to the plan materials panel, I can go in and edit that, right? So, and of course, I need to search that because we didn't have it highlighted as we moved over. So here's that pebble dash. And then if I go to edit here, we're going to see a couple things. One is in our texture panel, and actually this is different for this particular stucco. It may be that this person, oh, you know what? That's because I modified it. The default stucco has no texture source. The default stucco now, starting from I think X11, has no texture source, but you'll notice it looks good in 3D. The reason it looks good in 3D is because it has a normal map built into it. If I delete this texture source, okay, you're going to see here under our material color section on this texture panel that we've lost the ability to blend with texture. And in fact, this stucco material is pulling its color from our material color that is based out of the pattern panel under the colors section. So if I change the color here, it's going to change the color of the stucco. Now, the reason this thread was probably brought up is because people like to use the blend with material mode in 3D. So if we pull a 3D view, all we're going to see is a wall. And then I want to pull a color from somewhere else. So let's just break this wall, or maybe we'll continue this wall. It's actually difficult to do in 3D without getting in tight here. Maybe we can do it. There we go. So if I change this one wall color and I want to influence the beige on this stucco color, right, by using our blend with material, using the material eyedropper. So here we go, clicking on material eyedropper. And now our edit menu shows the option to blend with material, blend colors with materials. Well, without that texture source, we can no longer do that. So the big part of this is that the way I have my materials set up is I've edited the default stucco so that it does have a texture source. So you'll see here, let's just delete this texture source. I'm going to press OK. And because we deleted it and we had changed the color to that awful yellow, let's just change that color back actually real quick to something else, less aggressive. So there's our stucco. Keep in mind, we deleted that texture source, right? So that if I try to use the eyedropper with blend with materials checked on, and I try to, well, look at that. It keeps coming back. Trying to prove that this doesn't work, but it is working. Ah, see, it didn't blend with, it changed the color in its entirety, which means we lost its bump map and everything else. So kind of a glitch, kind of an error setup. It didn't used to do this in X11. Anyways, the workaround is copy your stucco materials to your own user library, and you need to add something to the texture source. In this case, I have a folder of all my materials that I've built up over the years, and within that folder, I have something called solids. I use a solid white 255, 255, 255 RGB, right? We've got no hex values here in Chief, so it's all RGB. So there it is, solid white color. Then I've got that bump map. Now I can use blend with materials and blend with that bump. So, and that's, so far as I know, the only issue is in the stucco, the core catalog stuccos. So that's what's happening with that Q&A right there. Chief stucco and material eyedropper. I'm certain of it. In fact, I think I did already respond to this one. Yeah, here we go. Bay Area guy, cool. I said Bay Area. Custom shaped walls, old Italian house with unusual wall shape. What do we have here? What is he trying to say? I'm currently drafting for a 3D projection, an old Italian house with very thick stone and stucco walls. Base has base plan has been done by a previous worker. I have to BIM it now. Building information model it now. Okay. I ran into some problem when it goes to non-standard wall shape. Do you have a magic trick? See the screen capture below. Okay, so I think what he's showing us here is that this hatched area is all walls. Interesting. So he has non-standard shapes that are walls. I think the way I would go, we could go about this, but let's just check this out real quick. I'm going to do a screen grab. Let's bring this in the Chief real quick. Okay. So I'm going to close this camera view out. Here we go. And we're just going to paste this as a picture. And let's see if we can't do this. Now we'll scale this down so that it shows appropriately. But here's kind of my line of thinking here. I know that he's, looking at this from the viewpoint of these are solid fill, right? We're showing a solid fill. But in fact, if I want to model this, I'm not going to draw the solid fill. Let's see. Let's just scale this way down. I don't have a great way of scaling this. By the way, when you scale an image in Chief Architect using our point-to-point resize, it will only point-to-point resize based on the original aspect ratio and orientation. So that, let me give you an example. If I rotate this image 35 degrees, right, and then I resize it across its x coordinate, it's still going to resize based on its original orientation, not based on this new orientation, which means I'd have to rotate this, screen grab it, bring it back in, and then rescale it. There's your workaround. It's a clever one in case you ever run into it. So let's rotate this back. We don't need to do that. And let's just get it close enough so that we're kind of reproducing the size for this. Okay. I'm going to hold my control key, just place this wall in place. So here's my thinking here is you are going to end up doing some kind of CAD-based fill. But in the meantime, all you're doing is tracing the perimeter. This is all, I mean, this section right here would be a thicker section. And if it's the same makeup where all we need to do is increase the main layer, we could always take just that straight section after we've drawn the next section. Let's take this straight section and in our general, we can produce that additional thickness here. So, right? But really all we're doing is kind of tracing that perimeter shape. And then we can fill in between with some kind of fill. So if we're just trying to get that same graphical representation, we can do it this way. This is my favorite trick that I tell people that I'm training, by the way, is let's use our continuation handle. So continuum like kind, I can't remember what Chief actually calls this, but that diamond at the end there to continue this wall. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of continue it in the direction of the arch. And then after that, I can hold my control key to create an arch here and alt key at the same time. Excuse me, alt key to create the arch and control key to control that arch. Maybe it needs to come up here. So alt to start it, and there we go. And control to override snaps. So alt is our alternative behavior. Control is our override snap. So I'm able to locate that wall pretty well. Continuation handle is still going to draw a straight wall because we didn't use the curved wall tool. So kind of a clever workflow trick there. And then I don't know what's going on here. It looks like it might be a door element or something like that. But yes, we can ultimately draw this shape out and then maybe do some fill in the interstitial space. And if you're like me, I actually like to draw X's that have solid fill in interstitial space. So, and if we just get to our line, I might trace the interior of this, but an easier way of doing it would be to just finish up this. Let's enclose this so it becomes a room, right? And whatever that error was, I didn't even pay attention to it, did I? I'm going to use this make perpendicular. An edge surrounding a roof plane across itself. Oh, you know what I'm doing? I'm running into some other goofy stuff here. Yeah. Okay. It's a new error. I haven't seen that one. Anyways, line this up with the other one, make it perpendicular, make it go in a straight line, etc. Now you've got a room. Now you can make a room polyline based on that, right? So make room polyline. Now you can add some kind of fill style to it. Could be an angled hatch, 2-inch angled hatch. Sure, why not? There you go. So pretty simply handle that issue. Let's get back to it. Okay, reference grid is at an angle. Reference grid is at an angle. Change the angle of the reference group by a few degrees and cannot figure out how to correct it. Yeah, I don't think that's possible either. Not really sure what he's talking to. Yeah, rotate the plan view somehow by 100. Thank you for. Yeah, don't know that one. That's a new one. I'm not sure. Let's move on. That doesn't seem possible. It looked like someone from Chief said it wasn't possible either. Cut angle on framing member. Now this is challenging, but there's a few ways you can accomplish this and fake it. And it's not what you would want it to be. It's a workaround. I know people don't necessarily like the workarounds, but sometimes they're necessary. And we got a phrase here. It's let's get off the island. So I'm framing a deck manually and would like to cut an angle on the beams. Can you tell me how to put an angle on the end of these boards? You can always take a polyline solid, turn it into a beam. That's pretty simple. Not that we're turning it into a beam, but you can make it report to a beam. You can make it report to a beam schedule. You can even make it on a component basis report to a bill of materials. So kind of useful. If you're sitting there trying to fight certain things like a special mitered angle on a framing member, you can always build it out of a P-solid. I don't love using a bunch of P-solids, but that's kind of an old methodology. Nowadays, I'm a little bit more free thinking about the P-solids. So here we go. We're going to just draw a P-solid out, and then let's just take a look at this. It's been a while since I've done this, so we can check it out. But one is underneath our line style panel, which some components we have a layer panel. Other components we might have a line style. It depends on its classification. So we're under CAD default. We can of course send this to the layer that is our framing layer, right? So that's one part of this. The next part is underneath our components. Right now it's showing as solid concrete, but we can add a line item. It can be in a number of things. We can designate its ID. We can designate its count, etc. We can even make our P solid and then convert it to a symbol, and that symbol can be, where is it? Where are we here? Molding hardware, millwork. I know it's staring in my face, but I don't see it. There we go. We can turn it into millwork, show advanced options. There's different classifications based on the symbol specification that you set out as well. So our options panel will kind of always tell us this, right? So here we have the ability to make it a newel post, fence panel, a number of different things there. And we have different functions of each of those as well. I'm trying to remember which classification is sufficient for creating a piece of like a framing member. But the other thing that we can do here, especially after we've converted it to a symbol, is make it report to a schedule. Let's see. Put an angle on the beams. Can you tell me how to put an angle on the end of these boards? So, and we're also talking about, let's see, use the extend tool. So there is a trim, there is a miter tool, and even a lap tool when you get into it. I mean, I suppose we could dive into this a little bit. I don't have to do this very often, believe it or not, because most of my details I don't drive from the model itself. I have boilerplate details that I bring in and then point. So I would point my deck to. Let's just do a new template file. Let's close this one down. I would point my deck to that detail, right? So I don't actually need to show those framing members mitered. In fact, a lot of times I show in my framing plans, lines represent my framing members. All right. So new plan, let's build out a deck. Why not? Oops, used the wrong tool. There we go. And let's take a look. I actually don't have a plan view established that shows my framing members here. So let's see if I can't get to it from a framing layer set. And then maybe we need to go down a level. So here's a post. And if I were to rotate, excuse me, not a post, a joist. And we're going to operate, we're going to manually change a framing member. So we're going to automatically turn off that deck framing. And then here on my selected edge here, we've got these tools in our edit toolbar. So there we go. We've got join and lap ends, we've got join and miter ends, etc. Now keep in mind, you can always kind of force this situation by breaking your components up, splitting a section, right? So let's try this miter tool and select on additional member. There, now we've broken it up. We've mitered it in a way that's not the way that I would miter it, right? So to fix that, you might come in here and edit from the other side. Maybe you're mitering this item to that item, or let's just try the miter again, see what it does this time. It does a totally different miter. Button join ends. There you go. There's that condition, right? That's kind of the condition we were looking for. Except for that, probably want to extend this forward and then figure out how it's going to join up at this far end. So now I'm going to end up doing something here. Either it's going to button join ends or it's going to miter. Oh, that was goofy. Let's bring this back. Oh, yeah, I really haven't messed with these features much. There you go. That's it. Done. Confidence in the software, right? Let's just jump in and figure it out. There you go. So there's this condition he was looking for. There's your solution. But again, if you're fighting the software, yeah, sure, use a solid. It's fine. Too many of those solids, though, slows down a plan. And also, they don't report to schedules. So you need to convert the solid to a symbol. And maybe that's tedious. Of course, you can always add stretch planes into your symbols, and then it's a dynamic symbol. Let's just do a new plan. Let's close this one out. It's going to take forever to get through this first page. All right, so Rafter issues. Let's take a look. Okay, Rafters being notched by apparently a floor platform. However, these are inconsistencies because it's only doing on one side of the building. I've manually drawn the rafters because the auto build wasn't doing what I wanted to. And I had the same issue with the notching of the rafters. It was happening over the knee walls in the attic space as well. I thought manually drawing them would fix the issue. It only did one side. Let's take a look at his image. So it seems like we've got a bird's mouth cut that's a little tall here. And, you know, in cases like this, I really don't want to sit here and kind of fight the meaning here. If they don't provide a plan file, it's pretty difficult to figure out what they're talking about for their particular instance, because ultimately it's, you know, it's probably user error for the most part because we have these capabilities. So it would be nice if you posted a plan file. Yeah, see, someone here is requesting that plan file. We've got the plan file here. And it looks like the issue was resolved. Rafters in my plan were set on the second floor deck on a 2x6 plate. Yeah, so he built this from a previous iteration of his design, those original rafters, and then try to conform them. So they're, you know, the condition is that the bird's mouth cut was coming from and retained from a previous build. So if you're running into that kind of stuff, start from new. It's really quick to draw up a roof plan. Let's just take a look real quick. Let's get in here. I'm going to let my auto build roofs take care of a lot of this, but we can just draw a quick little plan, something that you might see that's common, L-shaped deal here. And let's just throw in a couple gable ends and take a look at this in 3D. Now here's 3D, and then here's our generated framing, which mine's a little different. It's going to show some different things. So there's our rafters, right? But if we take a look at this back in plan view and we get into my framing roof plan set, and we look down in here, you can see here, I mean, our edit toolbar gives us a lot of capabilities. We can produce everything that we see here just by manually drawing it, especially if we're utilizing our multiple copy. And then our sub edit, which is a multiple copy interval. It's getting late. Offset between copies when dragging, and by default, our rafters are going to be set at 24 inches. Of course, we can change our alternate behavior, and that's in a bi-direction plane. But for the most part, we're going to be drawing in 24-inch intervals for the roofs that we build in California, anyways. So it's easy enough to, I have a roof rafter selected, but in my build menu, we can do a restrictive selection by setting up our framing, getting into our roof rafter. Here we go, our rafter, and then shift selecting, and that's a contain selection for all my roof rafters. And then I'm going to be turning off automatically rebuild, right? So then I can build that framing member by hand if I wanted to, and you can see how quickly this could go. It goes very quickly, especially if we're coming off of a certain framing reference that we've established. But then our multiple copy will get us here really quickly. And I always just extend past what I need, right? Because we can actually use something like, well, I like to just draw CAD inference lines and just draw this through this corner, but I can use this to create a trim so that I'm trimming these framing members. Right? So really simple to frame out roofs. And then once I have these framing members here, right? This is a rafter. I can of course use marquee select similar, or that restrictive selection based on the rafter tool. And then I can grab all of these rafters here, shift contain selection, and duplicate them and reflect about an object, which is going to be this inference line. There we go. Now I've started those rafters on this side, and I can extend them to my ridge line. Really quick to build your own roof rafters if for some reason the automatic tools are fighting you. Let's go on to the next one. All right, now we're down to new computer. Yeah, go get one. get something with a 3090 RTX and tell me how it is. Love to know that one. Edit imported symbol. I could guess as to what this is about. I bet you anything it's about the material IDs and UV mapping. I imported a SketchUp file from caddetails.com, free plug. And what do we have? It's a fireplace mantle, and I added it to my library. We can see here already what's going on is this is something like a SketchUp material or, a SketchUp file or something like that, where they're showing multiple views just to kind of display this. You can't just bring it into Chief without having a bunch of issues, because it's including a mesh that isn't not only the mesh that you wanted, but also, a different iteration of that same mesh. It's turned on an axis in this case. And how do you get rid of this without bringing this into a third-party software and going through and fixing this? So the symbol includes two objects. When I click on the object, it has a bounding box that includes both objects. Yes, this is Chief's functionality. We do not have a built-in editor of someone else's meshes. Here we go. ChopSaw brings up exactly what you might do. I'm going to add on to this solution, and I might even pin this and come back to this, is that in our Chief arc, okay, I'm going to delete all objects, or let me just start a new file again. Make it really easy. I'm just going to start from that new template file every time. So let's say I have a mantle. In fact, I do have a mantle. Let's bring this up in from my library browser, mantle. In fact, I've been building out some mantles. I'm going to filter this by a user filter. Here we go. I've got mosswood mantle. I've got this new stepped mantle. Let's do the mosswood mantle. It's a little bit more complex than the stepped one. Let's pull a 3D view. And actually, before we get too far, we're going to assume that I have two of these mantles. Control-Alt-C, drag this over. Now we've got a copy. Okay. You can see here in my 3D menu, we've got an example toolbar that I was building out for someone. Let's close that down. All right, so we have two mantles. This came in a package as one. So this is one singular symbol. So how do we get rid of that second symbol? In fact, let's just prove the scenario. We'll convert this to a symbol. I don't need to add it to my library. Don't need to do advanced options. That means it's just going to be, you see my mouse just changed to an icon. That's a millwork icon plus. So now I'm adding it into this plan. And in fact, because we have no surface to land this on, unless I can click on another millwork item and replace it, which I can't, I need to come into plan and place it that way. You can see here, it's still in my queue, if you would call it that. Okay, so now I've placed that symbol. It's one symbol with essentially two components in there that I want to save. So here we are back in our 3D view, and what Chopsaw aptly was recommending was that we use the delete surface tool. Now I have this in my toolbars, which is where I would usually click, but let's just go ahead and locate this from our 3D menu. 3D menu, delete surface tool. Now, before I go about doing this, which is a painstaking process, you can see here as we hover over elements of this 3D symbol that it's highlighting. It's using the highlight colors that I've specified in my program's preferences. Okay, underneath the appearance panel, I believe, section colors, I think. Anyways, as I highlight here, I'm being given vertexes, vertices, faces, given faces that I can delete, or what Chief is calling a surface. Okay, but these are actually faces of a mesh. Now I could go in here and painstakingly delete individual faces until I no longer have this second object so that I can save the first object. Okay, that's kind of tedious. Instead, I'm going to select this. I'm going to open up the symbol context menu, which is our dialog box. Okay, in my 3D panel underneath faces section, I'm going to increase the smoothing angle. I don't care. It could be 300. Okay. What that's doing, and I explained this in another video, is any angle that is less than 300 degrees offset or adjacent, or what's the tangent to another face or surface in this case, is going to be a part of that surface. It's going to remain one surface. So now when I use my delete surface tool, you're going to see here, I might get bigger blocks. Now in this case, it didn't really work that well in our favor because of the nature of a mantle has a lot of hard angles. But I can go through here and delete everything from here. And if I bring this into a blank plan with no other components in view, when I'm done deleting the surface, underneath tools, symbol, convert to symbol, I can add this back to my library, having deleted all these items. This is only a temporary deletion. So if I add a new component into the scene's going to rebuild and this mantle is going to come back. We're not truly deleting geometry. It's more like we're hiding it. So the other way I can refresh this is just by hitting my F5. It's going to refresh and rebuild the scene and bring us back to this, which for some reason doesn't always work with our symbol classification. If I open this and then close it back, you're going to see those surfaces will come back. All right, let's get on to our next post. Help, overlapping attic walls. Okay, let's check this out. I'm recreating our house. So this is maybe a junior designer, a homeowner, something like that. And planning out updates, remodels. In the front of our house, we have a bump out with 3 windows and it has a gable roof. The left side of that gable continues up over the right side gable and connects to the main gable roof. I cannot for the life of me get these areas enclosed because I can't overlap attic walls. I can only get one or the other. Is anyone willing to take a look? Oh, we could take a look. Why not? We'll queue it up. I could use a little break. I'm going to take a little sip while this is opening up. We're going to throw this into a special folder on my computer I call Send and Delete, which is where I send things that I don't really care about that you're giving me. No offense. Let's open this up. Let's unzip it into that same folder. In fact, I can just open it directly from here, from inside this file archive. And we should see it populating here. There we go. Overlapping attic walls. I wonder what we're getting at here. He's got a working plan view. Yeah, and a few other things here. Cool. He's got some stuff established here. He's got that grid on by default. Boy, if you guys like working with that grid, I won't get along with you. So turn that off. And hey, he's doing a pretty good job of recreating his home. Let's take a look at what it looks like in 3D. We're going to be missing some materials. Oh, we've got color turned off by default. Interesting. I don't know why. Color and shadows turned off by default. So let's check it out. Overlapping attic walls. Oh, I see what he's talking about. So basically, what he's probably talking about is this section right here. And it just looks like he's got, he needs to fix this roof line for one. This roof line is cutting into his wall, so that's making it disappear. So say we delete this roof line, you're going to see immediately that this allows the wall to reproduce. There we go, just like that. Same thing here. This roof line's cutting in to some extent. If we get rid of it, we should see this automatic generation happen. Um, and in fact, it looks like this roof is cutting in as well. Probably could have done this roof in auto, but you see here now we've generated this wall back. It's coming back into play. Looks like there's a bunch of issues in this plan, so not the only fix that he's going to need. I have some roof plan videos I just came out with. Those are pretty intuitive. Got a lot of tricks there. So one of those tricks might be that if I know where this ridge line is and it's going to be centered on an arch of this window, maybe I duplicate this and then reflect about. And it seems to be I lost my reflect about quick key. So let's just use the edit toolbar. So that would be something that we're looking at. Now it's going to cut that wall in a specific way. And it looks like these walls are actually offset. So he's got some alignment issues with his walls as well. Um, Sometimes I offer up that you guys can send me plans and I'll work through some of your main issues, but more often than not, I run into a ton of issues. So, like this seems to be a roof that's on the ground. Anyways, Josh fixing. There's a few things you got to fix on your plan. No offense, man. Would love to help you out. If you need help, give me a call. I've got some resources for you. I've got a few people that do these types of things more efficiently and inexpensively, less than I would charge you. So here we go. Next one up. Let's take a look. I hope we're getting to the bottom of this. How far are we? Okay, we are getting to the bottom of this. Remove baseboard from one wall only on a room. Well, I can tell you how to do that already. That's a real simple one. We could just say it from memory. Let's see if I can remember this. Select the wall, open up that component contextual menu. That's what I found out it's called. I had to dig through the archives for that one. Contextual manual or dialog box. You're going to open up your wall dialog box. And then in the first panel, I believe there's a section at the bottom that says molding on the interior side of this wall, molding on the exterior side of this wall. Let's check it out. Let's see how close I got. Draw out a wall, select this guy. Oops, made a little angled wall there as well. Open this guy up. And here we go. In our general panel, underneath our options section, no room moldings exterior, no room moldings interior. Pretty self-explanatory. Now we've removed that room molding. Let's just take a look. We can see sometimes if we've drawn out a room, let's check this out. Let's just draw this out. Let's see if our contextual preview works for that particular wall. Now, keep in mind, I didn't go and reselect our wall tool to draw the rest of these walls. What I did was use the continuation handle. So this handle, and I need to go find out what this is actually called in the software, but it continues in like kind, if you will. So it's going to continue a wall that already has no room moldings checked. If we wanted these to have room moldings, maybe we do a selection here. Or more specifically, I like to do my contain selection, control, restrictive deselection. And right now I'm in intersected selection mode. I would rather be in contained selection mode. So my tool-based contextual restrictive contained selection and then restrictive deselection to get these three walls, edit them at the same time, and then say, yes, we have room moldings interior and exterior. I wish that in our preview window over here, this is what I was looking at, our contextual preview, that it showed a graphical representation of removing or adding those moldings, but it doesn't. Next version, maybe. Okay, next up, Alienware Full HD versus 4K. I don't know if I have an answer for this, but we'll see. Anyone has an Alienware with a full HD display? I'm wondering if the brightness is good enough. Okay, looking for recommendations. Not my area of expertise. That should be in chat room. Camera view not updating. Let's take a look at what this is. Anyone having issue with the camera view not updating or freezes in CA when you place something? No, and in case you didn't know that, when you do place a new component into 3D, it should automatically update our view. The only way that it wouldn't update our view is if we have that option in preferences, which to my recollection, we do not. And I'd have to really dig in here to see if there would be something in here. It would most likely be underneath our appearance menu or edit menu, but pretty sure we have update 3D on by default. Appearance, yeah. I probably have some different preferences here, so than what you've got in your dialogues. Let's see, yeah. So I don't know that that's an issue I could solve. That might be something for reporting. I got to know my strengths. Okay. Roof tie-in ideas sought. Another probably topic for chat room. Trying to put together very quick and dirty. This is what's so useful about ChiefTalk, and it looks like someone downvoted, so probably didn't like working with this guy. We're giving away their work for free. Here's Ryan Gardner. Love this guy. And Solver, whose name is Eric. They're frequents in this, and it looks like this is just someone scouting for some ideas. And sometimes people are happy to help. So there you go. Don't be shy. Have some thick skin though in this forum. I would say that. Standing metal seam with PBR causes ridge. Okay, so I know what this one is, and I think I actually already responded to it. And we can see what's going on here. Is in our view here, we see that someone used a standing seam material. Okay, when they use that standing seam material, what we're seeing here is we're seeing the plywood at all the standing seam ridge lines, if you will. Or, oh, what would be the technical term for that? Fins? I'm not actually sure. I'd have to look that up. So let's just draw this out. In fact, we've got a house already built here. Let's just take a look. Let's go to that standing seam. And I'm going to have to open up my filter to core only. I'm going to look for the core standing seams. Here we go, black standing seam. Now, keep in mind, I want to change the default roof material. Keep in mind that I've migrated my plans from version to version. So it might be that this version is coming from an old migration and that they may have changed this in the core catalog files. I have not updated my core because I utilize my own textures or methods. So here we go. Let's switch to a PBR RT, and you can see here, we do in fact have this issue. Now let's look at this and think about what it might be. Logically, what's happening here is in the material adjustment, this isn't based on any kind of component. It's more specific to the material itself. So if we adjust material using our adjusted material tool, we're going to see here that this material looks just fine here, right? And in fact, we've got a normal map built into this. I thought that maybe we might have a bump map that we can invert, because if we inverted this, maybe we would get more height out of that standing seam. But in fact, this is utilizing a normal map instead. It does look like, for some reason, oh, we don't have a roughness or a metal map, so there's no adjustment there either. So the only thing we can do here then is either replace the material with something that we have more finite control over in the bump map, or we can come in here and I've got auto build roof, so let's just get into that designation. We'll get into our structure panel and then edit our surface. So what I think is going on here is that ultimately you need to lift this off of the plywood or increase the overall thickness. If we change it to 2 1/8 inch, does that edit it out? Let's take a look. You can see here the roof raised up. That might not be something that you like, but you can also notice that we did fix that problem by doing that. So another solution might be that we put an air gap material in between. You can see it here at the bottom of my screen. If I put a magnifying glass on it and just blow it up, you can't actually see the bottom of my screen, but here you go. is I've got a little icon here that looks like a ghost. In fact, that's an air material. Just in case we had a little bit of lag, my system does produce lag when I'm in PBR. So in case you didn't catch that, I was showing you that I actually have an air gap material with an icon that's a ghost. And that's for placing such items in a roof stack so that if we open this roof up, and we're going to edit this, so we're going to turn off auto rebuild. But when I open this up in my structure panel, if I change under my roof layer section, if I change my surface by clicking on that edit radio button, if I want to add another material that's a duplicate of the standing seam, I would simply say insert below with this standing seam texture selected. If I want to add another material with my plywood, I'm going to have this selection, and then I'm going to say insert above. It's going to duplicate whatever my selection is. That goes for wall assemblies as well. Wall definitions, I should call them. So here we go. Insert above. Can do that this way. And then I can add by clicking in that pattern fill window, thumbnail window, if you will. I can add an air gap material. And it might produce a gap between the plywood and my standing seam. But again, this isn't true to our construction assembly. What's more true to our construction assembly would probably be the overall height of our standing seam being taller than what was represented there, which was 1/8 an inch. I do have a method for doing a standing seam. I'm going to do that in a separate video. I've been playing around with, is this finally something I want to charge for? I'm more of the free content type where let's just lift everybody up. It's free resources for everybody. Let's get everybody on the same page and work together. So look for that. Hopefully in the future, maybe I'll do a standing seam video. It's a realistic standing seam. It works quite well. All right, let's get back to our thread here. I think we're almost done with this. Let's see, door schedule 3D elevation view. 3D elevation view. What do we? It looks like we have a solution solved by Ryan Gardner. Good job, buddy. We know you know your stuff. Okay, so what's he looking for? I'm having trouble figuring out how to add elevation views of doors to my schedule layout page. I know how to add them to the schedule itself in its own column, but we prefer to have them to scale below the schedules as they are in the example attached. Let's take a look what he's talking about. It looks like what he wants to do is show an example of what the type of door is in a larger 3D. And to which I would say, why don't you just make a CAD detail of a door and add it to your library and then be able to drop it in from either your CAD detail management from your plan or just drop it in directly to layout. I used to kind of frown upon that, but I don't know, nowadays doesn't really bother me all that much. So you could either have it living in your plan in CAD details where you just create a CAD detail from a door. You can get a lot more detailed than this because essentially what you're doing here is you're just cropping out a part of the schedule and you're creating a duplicate schedule. So ultimately you're always going to be creating a CAD detail here, or you're duplicating the view that's being sent here and rescaling that view, blowing it up, and then cropping it out. Let me show you how that works. I don't think that's a great workflow, but I'll still show you how to do it. Okay, so let's throw a door in here first of all. Let's pull why not wall elevation. I think I have a hotkey set up for CAD detail from view. No, I don't. So let's do this CAD detail from view. Oh, I do. I just hit the wrong keys. There we go. Contain selection. Great thing, right? I can hit my line key and do shift selection. There we go. There's my contained selection. Let me just drag this off to the side. That's all I wanted to do. Now I can delete the rest of this. There's my door. I can delete these lines if I want to. That's fine. Whatever you like. Now I got a CAD detail. Send it. That's easy enough. Separate from that, let me get to my project browser. Now my default plan has schedules in my project browser. Let me open up my door schedule. Let me modify this so that it shows a elevation, 3D exterior elevation. Sure, why not? Oops, I forgot to add it. Let's do that again. 3D exterior elevation, let's add it here. Let's move it up the stack. And in fact, maybe I don't even care about all this other stuff, but we'll leave it anyways. There's our 3D elevation. Now I'm going to Control U, send this to layout, except for that I need to open up a new layout. Yes. Oh, and they also want me to save this. So let's, I don't want to save it, but let's do it anyways. Fine. We'll save it. We'll throw it into that special folder, send and delete. Here we go. Delete. All right, now we can Control U, send this to a layout, a new layout. There we go, just like that. So now I've sent my schedule to layout at whatever scale, doesn't matter. And now I'm going to Control C, drag this down by its center marquee handle box, whatever. What is that? Center handle, selection handle. And then in my edit toolbar, rescale this layout view. I can make it a 1-inch scale. And then finally, I can crop this. And then if I want to drive this from a macro that shows what this is in a CAD detail, maybe I'm making a separate CAD detail for this, who knows. Or I can just drop in a label here, simple enough. So there we go, there's a method, easy enough. So you could do it from a CAD detail, or you could do it from the schedule and just rescale your layout box, either way. And that's it, guys. I think we're finished. I got one page down out of the ChiefTalk forums general Q&A, and man, we covered a lot of content here. It's kind of nice that I don't have to come up with my own content when I've got it sitting right here in front of me. And maybe you found some interesting information from this. So chime in, tell me if this is interesting at all. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. You can get a bunch of funny little tidbits of info from me running through this. I know this software well, if you couldn't tell, and I'm happy to share it with you. And sometimes I just don't know the content that you need. So, and I'm having trouble getting some interaction on the channel. I'm also not scheduling these things. My fault. Sorry. But go ahead and chime in after the fact. If you see something here that you'd like me to expand on, want some more information on, that's great. I hope you enjoyed. Subscribe, join the Rabbit Design group on Facebook, getting a lot of content there. Come in on the YouTube channel. Hopefully this is working live. We're going to review it after this and maybe have some adjustments next time. Hey, Chad, good seeing you, man. Look at this. Now I can do this. I can bring this up. Chad comes in and says, this is great. Awesome. Super happy you're chiming in. Thank you. And someone else. And here's my issue with this new feed setup, and I need to solve this, is that this is being restreamed from a program called StreamYard. And there's a process for people chiming in on Facebook, which is that you need to somehow go to StreamYard's application page in Facebook and enable something. So I got to give you more info on this, because that way we can see who is this Facebook user, so we know who we're talking to. So maybe I'll have some more info later on. Anyways, thanks for chiming in, guys. I'm going to take off for the night. Have a good night.